present. These are the Mangalacharan and also a kind of disclaimer that, when film starts, so it gives some disclaimer. So here is my disclaimer. This comes from Raghuvamsham, Kalidas, and he says, Athva kritvagdvare vanse asmin purva suribhi. So Suri means here philosophers. So Kalidas says, my role is just to bring together, thread together the gems. And so they look connected. So I'll be connecting certain ideas. And in addition to that, the great Bodhisattva, he was from the ancient Nalanda, master Bodhisattva Shantidev. And in his Bodhicharya-avatar, the second verse, he says that there is nothing new here that has not been said before. So whatever I'm going to say, it's already has been said by many scholars, because lots of new like young students are there. So earlier I thought I'll just speak my mind, but then I realized that I should bring some PPT slides so they get some idea of what I'm speaking. So philosophy, when you enter into any philosophy class as a beginner, you are taught that philosophy gets divided into metaphysics and ethics. So metaphysics is about ontology and epistemology. So these are again two technical terms. Ontology means the nature of reality, and it's a more sort of objective reality, like the solid physical outside reality. And then you have epistemology, so which refers to how knowledge happens, how we get to know the things, which is more related to so first, ontology is more like physical sciences, or epistemology where you can connect neuroscience to some extent. So it examines the process of cognition, or how we get to know things, how we see the reality. So there were these two branches, they converge. And when we study philosophy also, we discuss the limitation of knowledge, which I'll discuss more. And it is more of subjective reality. So there is objective reality and there is a subjective reality. And when we look into the scientific aspects, like here is Albert Einstein, I'm highlighting the dates there, 1934. So this is his statement he's making in 1934, almost 90 years back. Behind the tireless efforts of investigator, there lurks a stronger and more mysterious drive, and it is the existence and reality that one wishes to comprehend. So that was the 90 years, 100 years back. And now what has happened? So there is a huge transition in the domain of physics. And this transition, what you see now, Stephen Hawking, and he says that I don't demand the theory that corresponds to reality, because I do not know what it is. So you see, earlier they used to think that there is a reality. Now they are saying we can't know. And why this shift has happened? So I'll just quickly I'll try to present briefly this overview. This is a slide I have borrowed from Christopher Fuchs, a professor of physics from university. Thanks to Geshe-la and thanks to Tibet House that I had a chance to travel with him, and we spent in taxi. He's one of the leading quantum physicists. More than 15,000 Google citation he has. So you can imagine his So I had a chance, and we had a very good interaction when I traveled with him, and and he does not know anything about philosophy or Buddhist philosophy or Indian philosophy. And what he has presented in many of his conferences, that when in a sophisticated quantum information experience, the lab equipment is part of the agent. So there is merging the physical reality is merging with the objective. So there is no difference between subject and object. These types of things are coming. And here at Nalanda, we have a student who has studied with a student of Stephen Hawking. And he informed me that most of you might have heard this Brief History of Time, this book. How many of you are aware? Oh, so many people. But before Stephen Hawking passed away, he asked his student, Thomas Hartog, that please, update my research. And what he wrote in Brief History of Time, he refuted that. And this is the book has come last year, 2023, and the origin of time. So he has changed his perspective from what he wrote 20, 30 years back. So there is a change. Science is always updated. Like often I say in my classes that J.J. Thomson, he discovered electron and he got a Nobel Prize. He discovered electron as a particle, and his son also got a Nobel Prize. And he proved that his father was wrong. Electron is a wave. So that's a scientific approach. So what is the physics, the problem of physics? Here Max Planck, he says, as a man who has devoted his whole life to the most clear-headed science to study of the matter, so I can tell you as a result of my research about atoms, this much, there is no matter as such. And then matter dissolves, so we think that, okay, it's energy, E is equal to mc square. So here, Richard Feynman, it is important to realize that physics today, we have no knowledge what energy is. Now, the mind sciences and philosophy. Please forgive me, I'll be a little critical. Again, this is not my thing. This is Donald Hoffman, a professor emeritus in Department of Cognitive Sciences at University of California. So what he says, again, I'm quoting him from his book. Not only are neuroscientists ignoring the progress in fundamental physics, they are often explicit about it. They'll say openly that quantum physics is not relevant to the aspects of human brain function that are causally involved in the consciousness. They are certain that it is got to be classical properties of neural activity which exist independent of any observer. Spiking rates, connection strength of synapses, perhaps dynamical properties as well. These are all classical notions under Newtonian physics, where time is absolute and objects thinks absolutely. And then neuroscientists are mystified as to why they don't make any progress. They don't avail themselves to incredible insights and breakthrough that physics has made. Those insights are out there for us to use, and yet my field says, that means neuroscience says, we'll stick with the Newton. Thank you. We'll stay 300s behind our physics. So this is, so what, again, this is not my statement. This is coming from a very renowned professor of cognitive sciences. That's cognitive science, the bridge or the gap which Dr. Arun Sashidharan was speaking. It is not that philosophy, thanks to quantum physics, that now a Buddhist philosopher who has studied Nāgārjuna can discuss with quantum physicists like Christopher Fuchs, but that gap is still cannot be bridged, and the region lies somewhere else. So again, here one of the very prominent Buddhist thinker, scholar, author, and ex-faculty member of religious studies at University of California, Santa Barbara, Dr. Alan Wallace, and he talks about it in his YouTube videos and in his book, that depression is #1 cause of disability worldwide. The risk is 32% higher in wealthy countries. So where you have lots of these all medical facilities and all, but the risk is 32% high there. And US GDP has increased 50 times. But the rate of depression has also increased 10 times. So these medical sciences has not done much. And of course, many reports are there, newspaper reports here. America top export maybe anxiety, and US depression rates reaches new heights. And here is some statistical data reported by again a newspaper, that it is gradually it is increasing. So why? And then we have His Holiness Dalai Lama, of course, our source of inspiration and the ultimate source of compassion, and so that kind of thing. So contemporary psychology is not up to the task. About 2000 years ago, single-pointed samatha and vipassana were used to develop the discerning intelligence. Nowadays, the physical sciences are quite good, unlike the mind sciences. And these are not religious matters, but academic topics for the sake of increasing our knowledge, and Buddhist texts are excellent resources. And because I come from a Buddhist studies background, and what I see that most of the neuroscientists, they go, there are two branches within Buddhist philosophy and Buddhist psychology. One is Abhidhamma, the Pali, and then there is the Mahayana, the psychology. One is more sort of dualist tradition, and there is non-dualism. And where this dualism and non-dualism, there is a paradigm, the change of paradigm is there. And wherever I see some correlation people talk about, they just, the neuroscientist or the psychology, their scope is just limited to the Pali Abhidhamma, the more sort of dualist tradition. And the excellent Buddhist sources which are available in Mahayana, that does not make sense to them. So that limitation is there. Now again, going back to, I'm here to speak about Buddhist idea, and I'll be speaking on the Nāgārjunas and his successors in Nalanda. So again, going back to philosophy has metaphysics and ontology and epistemology, which I discussed. How these Nalanda masters, starting from Nāgārjuna, how they looked upon the reality, the cognition. So first, Nāgārjuna's dating is around 2nd century BC or 2nd century Common Era, before Nalanda as a monastic university came into existence. So he has to debate with the Vedic philosophers, like there were Naiyayikas, the very strong proponent of reality, realist. So these are the cognitivists, like they are Pramanavadins in philosophical terms. And their philosophical supposition was there is an object, and there is a prameya, and there is a subject, prama, and pramana. Through valid cognition, we cognize the reality. So that is how Naiyayikas define the process of cognition, and then there is a valid means of cognition. Of course, Nāgārjuna refutes it, and he says that the pramana which you speak about, or the means of valid cognition, if you presume that pramana is like you have to take, these are presuppositions, then you are dogmatic. And if you don't have the presupposition that they are absolute truth, then it falls into the cyclic reasoning. So that way he refuted the early Naiyaika, the cognivist. And then around 7th century, when Nalanda is in a big full-fledged century, I'm just jumping to Ārya Candrakīrti, who tried to bring some of these logical ideas into Buddhist, and in order to define Nāgārjuna. So in his writing, which comes through the Ārya Candrakīrti's writing, Ārya Candrakīrti is actually critiquing, sorry, here is a mistake, it's Bhāviveka. So he's critiquing Bhāviveka, Ārya Candrakīrti is critiquing, and I'll define this term Pratītyasamutpāda, which means commonly we know dependent origination. The term has been beautifully defined. So prati means, so it's made of 3-4 words. Pratītyasamutpāda. Prati means something in front. So I talked about the subjective reality and objective reality. So object is out there, subject is my mind, or ontological reality, epistemological reality. So something is in front. So prati. And tya is something into motion. So that tya is, and some means coming together, and utpad means the arising, something is arising. So utpad actually comes from two different terms. It means ut and pat, utpanhun and pat. So arising and passing away, arising. So that defines the momentariness or impermanence. Every moment things are arising and passing away. In Pali we have upajjitva nirujjanti evam bhupa samasukho. That is how Mahaparinirvana Sutta defines the reality, that it is constantly arising and constantly disintegrating. So this arising and disintegrating is happening, but how cognition is happening? So there is ontological reality out there, and there is epistemological reality within the mind. And when this mind or objective and subject, they are coming together, some means coming together, and this motion is there, then the production is happening. So that is how we are perceiving the reality, how the cognition is happening. So it is interdependent production. So what Bhāviveka, the way he defines, he says it's 50% from the mind, what I have learned from Geshe-la, that it's 50% from the mind side and it's 50% from the object side. And that is how we are, and modern scientists, they also agree that we don't see the reality the way it exists. Of course, evolution has made us to perceive the reality only to survive. So we don't see the reality. So the reality is interdependent productions. Okay, 2 minutes, I'll conclude. So it is interdependent production, and which is set into constant motion, and which we generally define as a dependent origination. So it is, according to Acharya Bhāviveka, it's 50% subjective and 50% objective. Now comes Acharya Candrakīrti, again another Nalanda master, and he says it's 100% mentally imputed. Cognition is non-intrinsic. And he gives in Madhyamika avatar verse, and he says, without the apprehender, grahak vina grahakata vyuktam. So apprehender and apprehended, subject and object. So without apprehender, apprehended makes no sense. And they both are empty and not independent. If the entity is devoid of both, how does it exist? So without apprehending it, you cannot say that it exists. So actually, in a way, this he's again following the lines of Nāgārjuna, how he refuted the earlier Nayayika. Here he's also refuting that argument that the cognition is non-intrinsic, it is happening through mental imputation. And again, these are the old verses where again Acharya Candrakīrti says that it's species specific reality. So when the ghost being and the human beings and the devas, the divine being, they see the same reality but in their own way, and it happens because of karma. The karmic propensities are creating the reality. So it is species specific reality. Different species, they look reality in a different way. So, and that way again, going back to the way quantum physicists, they have reached recently, it's the reality is mind-made phenomena, which in Mahayana Sutras, which is called emptiness of phenomena. So chitram manoram sajitah pushpak swaranam. So all the various delightful flower blossoms and sparkling golden stand alluringly. They have no creator. They are posited by the power of thoughts. Through power of conceptualization, the world is imputed. So which comes into again the tantra. And again tantra, we have lots of misconceptions about tantra, but here Hevajra tantra, I often show this ruins. This is a Hevajra, a deity in Nalanda museum, and you see in the state, it's in the ruins. Similarly, our great texts are also in ruins. There are not much people, those who know, thanks to Tibetan masters, they have preserved it. But in India, and here I'm taking that Sri Heruka idea, thanks to Geshe-la's compilation of the prayers in the blaze of non-dual bodhicitta, and here the Sri, Heruka. So he is the selflessness of phenomena. So what we call dharma nairatmya. So there is no phenomena or emptiness of phenomena. Of course, phenomena exist conventionally. Ultimately, there is no phenomena. And emptiness of mind, which is source of everything. So mind is empty, but that's the source of everything. And it is imputed to be of causal nature. Ru is selflessness of the person, the pudgal nairatmya. The emptiness of self that is fabricated by web of conceptual thoughts. So the self web of conceptual thoughts that grasp at the self of the person, and Ka is the ultimate reality. Absence of dissonant duality between subject and object, and then the Sri Karam Advaya Jnanam. So that's the non-dual idea, the non-dual exalted wisdom, which abides in congruence with the emptiness of the object. Where does this, when realization of non-duality leads to. So there is a meditative practice called Tonglen. It is also there in the Bodhisattva Shantideva's Bodhicharya avatar. And when there is the realization of that, the non-duality, that there is no intrinsic object and no intrinsic subject. So when we, the idea of non-violence takes another level. It's not just, harming somebody. Ultimately, the self and other is not there. So Swatma Parivartan, transforming self to other. And then there is a self-sameness feeling for the other. So there where it leads to this type of, yesterday Geshe-la also mentioned that when we objectify the brain and the brain as a material thing, the empathy is not there. And here, through this type of realization, so this is after effect of realization of non-duality, that subjective and objective words, there is a sameness, feeling of sameness. And then Bodhisattva Shantidev, he concludes his Bodhicharya avatar, that yat kinchit jagato dukkham sarvam mai pachyatam Bodhisattva subhai sarvai jagata sukhamastucha. Which means, may all the pains of all living creatures, they come to me. They ripen, sarvam mai pachyatam, may I digest them all. And Bodhisattva subhai sarvai, through the might of Bodhisattva, may all bring may all beings experience happiness. So whatever little subha or the auspicious merit I have gathered, let that be enjoyed. So there where this type of realization, the non-dual cognition leads us to. And this is the final concluding prayer of Bodhicharya avatar, where Bodhisattva Shantideva says, as long as space remain, as long as sentient being remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Okay, thank you.